I have stayed spoiler free on this book, and actually have stayed spoiler free on all of the books. No, that's not true. And it has taken a little bit of willpower to not have picked it up sooner, knowing that this movie video thing. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse, and welcome to Booklist Thursday, which is a phrase I never thought I would utter. But I am so excited because Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand and Lindsey from Lindsey's Little Library have asked me to collaborate on their Booklist Thursday for the 5-star prediction edition, which is what we're doing today. So on the off chance that you are not familiar with Sarah and Lindsey, they have a weekly series that they do every Thursday with some sort of bookish theme. So sometimes it's like authors they want to read more of, or romances, or like great winter reads, or like short books or long books, books you can read in a weekend. And sometimes it's like their bookish habits. And they've done 5-star predictions for a while, and they started inviting other booktubers to collaborate with them. So they asked me, I got the call. I feel like, you know, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I'm feeling like the bride today. But they called and asked me to do it, and I'm so excited. And you can ask them. I clearly like fangirled when we were first talking. But before I started making booktube videos, they were amongst the few booktubers that I was watching because I didn't even know that this was a thing. So I'm very, very excited, and I feel like I'm like gushing, but I'm excited. So if you found me because of them, thank you for clicking over, and hopefully you will stick around. And if, again, on the off chance you don't know who Sarah and Lindsey are, their channels are listed below. So for sure, check out their videos today and check out their channels. So 5-star predictions. We are picking 5 books, and the theme that we came up with is books that everybody else has read except me. So these are all of like our FOMO books, or oh man, why have I not read this yet? Because I'm like the last person on the planet who hasn't read this book yet. And everybody else is talking about it, and now I want to know what all the talk is about. So it was definitely hard to narrow down the list because there's a whole bunch of books in the world that everybody else has read but me. But I got some different genres, some different eras that they were published in, so it's not all brand new thrillers, spoiler alert. So over the course of the next 3 months, we're each gonna read our 5 books, and then we are going to make a video to let you know what we thought of them. The first book I have on my list is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and I am both excited yet embarrassed to tell you guys that I have stayed spoiler free on this, which seems kind of amazing because A, everybody I feel like has read it. It is referenced in a lot of people's books. There's been movies about it. A lot of books are homages to this, and yet I'm still not sure how it ends, and I'm totally happy about that. But this is a story about a woman, and I don't think we ever even get her name, but she winds up meeting this very wealthy widower, Max de Winter, I want to say in Monte Carlo, and his wife has mysteriously died. Rebecca was his wife, and they have sort of this whirlwind romance. They get married, and then she returns back to Manderley, which is his estate home mansion, and she quickly finds out that she's kind of living in the shadow of Rebecca. So I have seen this described as horror, crime, mystery, suspense, gothic. I feel like some people are saying unreliable narrator. I don't know that it's actually ghosty in like a supernatural way, and maybe it's just more of the essence of Rebecca that haunts her. But I'm really excited about this book, and I had recently read that I Killed Zoe Spanos by Kit Frick, which I read in 2020 and totally enjoyed, was a Rebecca-ish novel. So I'm actually excited to read this, see what connections I can find, and then probably go back and read that one. So that was a great book, by the way. But this is the first one on my list. The next book I'm going to read is one that you guys have low-key hounded me to read, and you're not wrong, and it's A Man Called Uwe by Frederick Bachman. So ever since I read Beartown, which, not for nothing I was thinking about it, was 2 years ago, you guys have been like, you have to read Uwe. And Beartown was a book that I 100% picked up because of BookTube, and I read the sequel, and I just, like 3 pages in, was like, Frederick Bachman's the most beautiful writer I have ever read in my entire life. And dog-eared and underlined and quotes and passages and tears and heartwarming and everything. So my expectations are super high for this one, obviously. And this is about kind of like a crotchety old man, I want to say. Yeah, the grumpiest man you will ever meet. and everyone thinks he's bitter and he thinks he's surrounded by idiots. And then a new family moves in next door to him, so it's a couple and their 2 daughters, and it sounds like an unlikely friendship is forged. And it says, a community's unexpected reassessment of the one person they thought they had all figured out. So I hear, you know, you'll laugh, you'll cry, it's better than cats. There's a cat. But I'm excited for this one. It's sadly only my 3rd Frederick Bachman. I'm embarrassed for myself, but high hopes, high hopes, high hopes for this book. So the next book is one that is 100% in my wheelhouse, because there had to be at least one that was in my wheelhouse, and it's The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. And this is dual timelines, mystery in the past, I think mystery in the present, dual POVs. It's a ghost story. I don't know too much more about it, other than it was on a bunch of people's best of lists in 2020. It was 100% on my radar for 2020, but like a lot of books, I didn't get there. And when I was trying to figure out what to pick for my 5th book, because it was between this and another one, and like I told you guys, there's so many books that I haven't read that everyone else has. Sarah was like, knowing what you read and knowing what you love, I think you have to go with Sundown Motel, and like, P.S. I loved it. So here we are doing it. And I don't know, again, too much about it, but I know that something hasn't been right at the roadside Sundown Motel for a very long time, and Carly Kirk's about to find out why. So we have this motel in 1982, and then we have it in 2017, which is when Carly is at the hotel. And her aunt, I guess, I don't know if she worked there or disappeared or something happened to her aunt back in 1982. And Carly just is not okay with it. And she's gonna find out what happened, it sounds like. So, ghosty, creepy, Riley Sager plugged it on the cover. I mean, I need nothing more. Riley Sager and Sarah are both telling me to read it. Done. So the next one is actually a book that I have already seen the movie of, but I don't think that is going to hinder my enjoyment of the story, but it actually held me back from reading this book sooner. But we're going in, you guys. It's Pet Sematary by Stephen King. And I have to say, I don't love the cover of this because it really creeps me out. I was looking for a less creepy cover, but this is the cover I have. So if you've read the book or know the story, just, oh, the cat. This book is about a doctor who moves his family to a small idyllic town in Maine, and it is haunting and creepy, and there is a pet cemetery in the woods near their house, and it is clear from the start that something is just not right about this place. So I saw the original movie way back in the day. I've talked about this before, in my friend's basement in high school. We rented it, and it scared me to death, you guys. And just all of it, the movie and Zelda and the story and everything. But what I think I was missing out on, as much as the horror was there to scare me, is I think I really missed a lot of the underlying pain that's in the book and in the story about grief. And what's interesting in the front cover and in the opening sort of intro by Stephen King, he says, when I'm asked what I consider the most frightening book I've ever written, the answer I give comes easily and with no hesitation: Pet Sematary. And he said, there's a reason King put this novel in a drawer for several years, quote, thinking I had finally gone too far. I obviously trust a lot of my fellow booktubers, and I trust you guys when it comes to recommendations. And I will wholeheartedly admit that I had some real preconceived notions about what makes something horror. And to me, based on movies like Friday the 13th and Pet Sematary and Freddy Krueger, I think about it being like gory and bloody and like shock value and just all about the gore. And what I have learned really over the past year, but more, you know, in the past couple of years since I've been doing BookTube, is how close-minded of a thought process that is, and that there's so much more to it. And I read some great books last year, and I am excited to dive into Stephen King and some other horror authors, and to read this story and to read his writing, because the only King book I've ever read is his nonfiction book on writing, and I have huge respect for him. I've been too much of a baby to try and dive into his books, but we're gonna do it here. I'm optimistic. I do expect to be creeped out and frightened and all of that stuff, but I'm also expecting quite an emotional experience with this book, because that's what I'm hearing from others is what it's about. So here we go, Pet Sematary. And the last book on my list was actually one of my most anticipated books of 2020. And it has taken some self-control to not pick it up sooner, knowing that we were making this video for 2021. And it's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And this book, it was on so many people's best of lists at the end of 2020, so I'm so excited for it. And this is about a girl named Addie. So it starts in 1714 in France. And she basically makes a deal with, it says, never pray to the gods that answer after dark. And she becomes immortal. But the caveat is that no one will ever remember her. But she's kind of okay with that at the time, or so she thinks. And basically what happens is she can go into a store and then the next day the people who work there don't remember her. She can go to a restaurant, she can go to a party, anywhere she goes, nobody remembers her the next time. And it is different timelines. And I think we are present day New York, and she goes into a bookstore and she goes back the next day and the guy who works at the bookstore remembers her. So questions of why him, and this girl who has lived in invisibility for years, decades, hundreds of years, is finally remembered. I have stayed pretty off the web on any kind of hints or story or plot lines or anything beyond, you know, that people loved it and they underlined it and it made them cry. And I listened to a bunch of interviews with V.E. Schwab, and I'm just a huge fan of hers as a writer. And it just sounds so beautiful, and I'm so excited to get into it this year, finally, because this has been sitting on my shelf since it came at the end of November, and I'm finally gonna get a chance to open it up and read it. So there you have it, 5 books that everybody has read except for me, and I'm so excited to dive right in. I feel like the hardest thing is gonna be deciding which book to read first. But thank you guys for watching today. If you haven't checked out Sarah and Lindsey's videos, totally do that right now. Subscribe to them, get into their content. They're both such fabulous ladies. Again, I'm so excited that they invited me to be a part of this. So thank you, Sarah and Lindsey, again. And we will be back in a few months with our updates on our 5-star predictions, and I will be back long before then with another video, and I will see you guys in that one. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.